Good morning. I hope that you are having a fantastic day, evening, whenever you're watching this, wherever you are in the world. I'm Meredith. Thank you so much for watching another one of my videos. I am an intuitive and an astrologer that's based out of the mountains of North Carolina. And I wanted to come talk about the full moon in Libra. And I want to talk about Mars and Pisces and what that kind of looks like it's shaping up to look like, at least in a personal sense. And I also want to talk about like just some other things related to the energies and things that I think it's good at least to be aware of. So, to kind of give a little bit of like a backstory as to like where we've been, in the last week, we've had a Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, which is very powerful. Jupiter and Neptune, that's like the traditional and the modern ruler of the sign of Pisces, and they're together. And it's like it's a magnified either delusion, or it can be like super magical and very obviously like leading us somewhere. I think that, the tendency for escapist proclivities to really be like, cropping up, especially because recently Venus moved into Pisces. And so Mars, as of yesterday, moved into Pisces as well until May 24th. And so, that's pretty intense. Like it's almost, I know that it's Aries season technically, which means that the sun or like our conscious direction is like exalted in Aries, meaning like our ability to like shine and like make decisions from a clear and like, more instinctual place is like, that's a really good energy. The sun feels really good in Aries. So, we have like this, we have Mercury in Taurus right now too. And, Mercury is going to station retrograde on May 10th. It'll be in Gemini and then we'll retrograde back into Taurus. And, so Mercury is in Taurus right now, like warming up to that retrograde station. And Mercury in Taurus wants us to be practical. So we have like this like practical action, decisive kind of energy coming from at least the sun and Mercury, but then Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Neptune are all kind of like, it depends on what you're feeling and how this bounces off of your own chart. Like that's one thing that I talk about a lot is it always depends. Like collective astrology is never going to 100% apply because it depends on you. It depends on your placements and like where you are in your life and in your personal journey of decision making and like figuring shit out. So Venus, Mars, Pisces, Jupiter, Venus, Mars, and Jupiter and Neptune all in Pisces. That's super intense and, is kind of like, it's very synchronous or like has the ability to be very like magical and very much like things are fated to be. And it's very, it can feel very creative and very inspired, but it isn't very grounded. Thankfully, Mercury is in Taurus, but it is like, and I think of the combination of the signs of Pisces and Taurus as like a heaven to earth kind of like, drawing down the cosmos and like bringing whatever it is that you're kind of seeing out here into form, which as Venus and Mars move into Aries and then move into Taurus, it's like, okay, like we kind of have like a pathway. Though, I would say that, right now there is a lot of potent energy to take action due to the fact that at the end of the month, there's going to be a solar eclipse in Taurus. And so that starts eclipse season on April 30th. And we kind of have to like, at least I find this like that, I can super like manifest and like, reality creation or whatever. But then when it comes time to have eclipse season, I just kind of have to take my hands off the wheel and like let go and let God, so to speak, and kind of like get into the space where I'm not trying to control what is choosing to come in and out of my life, because eclipses usually, like, something is eclipsed out and then something is eclipsed into your life, and it depends on the houses that you have, Taurus and Scorpio, where that eclipse season is going to hit for you, right? But so on April 29th, Pluto starts off the retrograde brigade of 2022. So it's kind of like, this is a super potent energy, and though it can feel kind of like we're like swimming through the unknown, it is like a time to really trust ourselves and our intuition, and to kind of like trust that we'll be like guided into taking the right action, right? Because that's the thing about Mars and Pisces. It's not like it can just force its way in there, like, Mars and Aries, right? It has to be divinely right, and it has to be like your spirit has to guide your action with Mars and Pisces. Otherwise, it's just delusional. And with Venus and Mars there, it's like, especially in our relationships, like, we definitely want to like let our intuition guide us, which sometimes isn't the loudest voice in the room. Sometimes our intuition is like the very calm, still quiet type of voice. And with late stage Pisces especially, which is where Neptune and Jupiter are, there can be a tendency to kind of like trying to figure out how to word this. Like, there can be a tendency to kind of lose ourselves in, in the fear and the unknown, and like, the kind of I don't know if it's not chaos, but it can be. It's like that drowning in the ocean, whereas like Venus and Mars are still not in the third decan of Pisces. So we have to be like guided and led with Mars and Pisces, and with Venus there. It's just like trying to force something is just not going to work. But it is also really like a good time to pour into the avenues of energy that are opening up for you, which might not be the ones that you want them to, because we're still in sort of this like shadow of Saturn squaring the nodes of the moon, and that can feel like these weird blockages, or like what we want to do, and like what we want for like our quote destiny, or like for what our direction to be. Like, things aren't opening up in that direction, but there are other directions where things are very much opening up. So it's just kind of, it's not always what we want, but sometimes it is what we need. And that's what we're reminded of, I think, through that square from Saturn to the north and south nodes in Scorpio and Taurus. So getting back to Mars and Pisces. So, this can feel a little bit sleepy. Like, it can feel, Pisces energy, man. Like, I think that for people who like myself, who do dream work, or like have interesting dreams, to say the least, this is a very interesting time for that specifically. And and also just kind of like paranormal type phenomena, like with all of these planets in Pisces. And I don't know, I think of Mars and Pisces, it can be like a real spiritual baptism. And I think that it, especially when you're operating intentionally. I have a friend named Erin, and she does human design readings. She's fantastic. And she said to me one time, because I was kind of like lamenting on the fact that somebody was telling me like to go with the flow. And I get that, like, that's something that we want to do, and we want to surrender to our like own divine, whatever. But I don't think that like it's always a good idea to go with the flow. And Erin she said dead fish too go with the flow, and I was like, wow, so it's like you don't want to embody that like dead fish energy at this time. Probably like you kind of want to like have some intention and direction. And I think that like the opposite of Pisces is Virgo. And I have both of those signs showing up pretty prevalently in my own chart, like Pisces and Virgo. So I can say confidently that, the antidote to the Pisces, like, woo, we're out there in the unknown and we're in dream time and like we don't know where the fuck we are and like what's going on. The antidote to that is like daily tasks and is like grounding into what is real in the here and the now, and like coming back to like sensory things like smell. Like right now I have this incense just kind of making me cough, but that's the thing. It's like you want to have like your you want to have your surroundings in a way that grounds you and feels peaceful to you. You know, you don't want to be like spinning out here in like the emotional realm, which I feel like is a very easy thing to do right now, especially like leading up into this full moon. And Mars in Pisces can definitely create like a passive aggressive energy. Like conflict is not really like the easiest thing for that archetype and that energy. So you just want to be aware of that, like that some of your, like there's a whole lot going on beneath the surface, but it can't always be like appropriately articulated or, you know, discussed or whatever. Like there's a lot going on behind the scenes and in the energetic realm that when Mars comes into Aries, when Venus comes into Aries and they move into Taurus, you know, before Mars takes a retrograde station at the end of this year in Gemini, which is like, oof, you know, it's like, there's a lot of like pulling heaven to earth. I can't like stop hearing that. And I know that it doesn't seem that way when you look out into the world. But I think that it's still like within our individual lives, like there are things happening that, I mean, just in my own experience, like I'm having a hard time even like describing like some of the things that have been coming up for me in my journey through consciousness and a body. And I think that that's, you know, the really interesting thing about Pisces is it's very nonlinear. It has to do with the soul. It has to do with the part kind of like beyond understanding, like, you know, what part of the human experience and the feelings and the emotions and the energy and what part of that can't we quantify? And that is Pisces energy. And so, you know, if you're one of those people that like need things to make sense, you know, if you have a lot of like Capricorn or Virgo, it's like things aren't really going to make sense right now, you know. And all we can do with the North Node in Taurus is kind of like, you know, step by step by step by step by step, and taking things like one step at a time, you know, building up our like real world and, you know, focusing more on like what is real and tangible for us specifically, personally. That's kind of where we yield like the most results, right? Like the North Node being in Taurus and the South Node being in Scorpio is creation and destruction. And it's like, are you creating and destroying in like a proper balance? Because I think like, I don't know, for me, like I definitely I am no saint and I am no angel when it comes to this, right? So I have a tendency, I'm very scorpionic as a person. So I have a tendency to want to like, I like the Scorpio impulse and I'm drawn towards the destructive, like at my very base. But I think that there's something so different and so about Taurus and it's like the Nusian sort of like ability to receive and like yield fruit and to, you know, it's very practical. And it's all about like what our values are. And I think that like coming through this eclipse season, we're going to get kind of like this, it's like I mean, especially like that full moon in Scorpio, lunar eclipse that is on either May 14th or 15th. That's intense. And that could challenge some of our values. And we might have to let go of certain things that, you know, interfere with that or that compromise us in some way. Like that make us feel that amplify the parts of us that are damaged and not even in a way that like makes sense or needs to be that way. So that is that. And yeah, as for the full moon in Libra, that's coming up tomorrow, which is Saturday here on the East Coast of the US. And I don't know, I mean, there's not really a whole lot of Libra energy in the sky, or in my opinion, I mean, Pisces is kind of relational, like there's a relational sort of romantic, like two fishes component to Pisces, but Libra is like really giving us an opportunity to look at like the dichotomy between like ourselves and the other, like our own like space and our own bubble, and like what's going on with the people in my life. Libra full moons are generally very relational and very you know, depending on where this falls for you, it could be like a good time to be social, or it could be a good time to maybe just kind of like examine the people that are in your life. And like, I mean, I said, like, I think maybe it was like February, you know, and I've said in different places that I have my information, just that like in 2022, if the relationships, and this is not just romantic relationships, it has to do with all relationships, like if the relationships that you're in are not aligned, and you know, alignment looks different for everybody, but if they're not like supportive or like, you know, driving you in a positive direction, which is very like North Node in Taurus, and if they're not like you know, there's like the Venus impulse and there's the Mars impulse, right? The Venus impulse is to couple, to receive, and to give love, and is like more value based, and a little bit softer, right? And then Mars is like combative and competition and passion, and not all bad necessarily, but I think that right now with the South Node in Scorpio and the North Node in Taurus, it like behooves us to lean in a little bit to our like more Venus impulse, which I think that this, you know, this full moon also mirrors that like Venus and Mars kind of like dance of energies, where, you know, in some aspects we want to break away and be free and come back to ourselves. And then, you know, it's like there's a part of us that remembers like, oh wait, we can't do it alone. You know, we are like social creatures, and it's a really fine time to examine like where you are on the spectrum of you know, independence, like over independence to codependency. And then in the center, there's like interdependence, where you can actually rely on people if necessary, but everybody's kind of doing their own thing, and then we can all come together and talk about it. There's like that's a good kind of spectrum to look at to see where you're at. Like, are you avoiding relationships, or are you like, you know, running face first into them without maybe like considering the company of who you're with, you know? This full moon is not too close to, it's a little bit, it's like a wide aspect to Chiron. So there is that kind of like aspect of maybe vulnerability of like, can we be ourselves, and can we be accepted as ourselves? And, you know, maybe not wanting to like, maybe just making a realization about like who we can be vulnerable with and who we can't. And I think those realizations are important. Like, not everybody can hold your magnificence. Not everybody can hold the truth that you have to share. My North Node in my chart is in the first house, so I've learned this like intimately. And I think that, you know, for some, and it just depends on like what your own chart says and like what your own proclivities are, because you know, some people naturally favor like more themselves, and some people are a little bit navel gazing and like self-interested, and then other people have like a hard time not giving themselves away. So how you're going to interact with this full moon is up to you. But I think that this is a really like good full moon to consciously work with. And I'm not talking about worshiping the moon. I'll say it until I'm blue in the face. I do not believe in worshiping the moon or like giving any energy to that. But I do think that like through the, it's kind of like a tracking mechanism, and you can use it as potent times for personal ritual in a kind of in a shielded and a safe space. So, you know, this is a really good time to release and to find some gratitude, and to like, just, it's because, you know, good to be grateful for what we do have, but at the same time, you know, we can examine our lives and be like, yeah, I can get rid of this, or I can release this. And, you know, for me, like just as an example, this full moon is in my 10th house of career. And one of the things that I think, you know, that it's kind of coming to a head for me. And like right now the moon is in Libra. So I'm feeling this energy of like, I've always put a lot of expectation on myself with regard to my work, and like, you know, have always like wanted to like please everyone within like this context. And just recognizing that like I'm not the astrologer, the mystic, or like I don't have the mind for everyone, and that I'm not supposed to be even accepted or like appreciated or whatever by everyone. And you know, I can kind of like shed that layer, and then it doesn't even feel like I've been working on that, so it doesn't feel right now even like pressured to create content, or like, you know, I feel like I'm kind of like in a natural, like relaxed organic stream of consciousness. But sometimes, you know, when there's so much going on in the astrology, you know, it can feel like a pressure to always like report on it, or to always come forward and add my voice, which in the last few weeks I've been like, no, I don't want to add my energy to, no, no, thank you. So I kind of took some time off from creating, and maybe now I can create from a more authentic space. And that's just one example out of so many, depending on where it is in your chart. And on my Substack, I'll be writing about all of this as well. So if you're interested in that, the link will be in the description. It's Virgo Venus, Pisces moon.substack.com. And yeah, so you know, use this full moon to work with, because once eclipse season comes on, it's just going to be like a zoop, hands off the wheel. Okay, you know, I trust the universe. But yeah, so I hope that you have an amazing day, and that you do whatever your heart desires to do, and that you take care of yourself. And I'm enjoying a lot making these rambly videos. So let me know what you think and how this is going for you. And we will, I'm sure I'll be back on here soon. So yeah, take care. Bye.